spit it out. Special delivery.
I want that.
Special delivery.
I need that.
Special delivery.
Can I have that?
Special delivery. Special delivery.
I want that.
Special delivery.
I need that.
Special delivery.
Can I have that?
Special delivery.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, Baltimore. Good evening to all our listeners around the state of Maryland, across the country. We're going to start the show, and welcome to Special Delivery. I'm your host, Will Hanna. Today is going to be a little different because today was a little different here in Baltimore. As many of you know, there was a big accident at the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And so I just want to make sure that we acknowledge and send prayers to the families of those that may have been lost, even to those that, and prayers to those that, to the couple that were rescued, prayers to all of our first responders and the divers and everyone involved in this tragic incident. It's a heart-wrenching thing. I actually had an opportunity to go down to the site this morning because I just wanted to be there in the midst and kind of give some prayer and some words of encouragement to some of the people that were there. But it was a very somber scene. It was very somber. So I just wanted to make sure that we talk about that for a second, and then kind of get back to our show. Because I know that we'll be talking about this for some time. This is not something that's going to go away. The feeling of it not going to go away for quite some time. And right now, and the one thing I think I've probably never agreed with anything that Mayor Brandon Scott has said ever. But today, the focus should squarely be on the families and the people that have yet to have been recovered. So, our hats off to all of our first responders and everyone that got there. I know there was a quick response and may have even saved some lives, some additional lives. So, wanted to make sure we touched on that. But it's a lot going on in Baltimore. We've seen upticks in crime. We've seen, this incident with the Bay Bridge, with the Key Bridge. And I want to make sure that we are not always talking about the negative in this city. And that's what I wanted this show to be about, is how do we uplift the city? How do we talk about what's good? How do we get past the things that we endure and see and encounter every day? This is a very trying time for the city of Baltimore, and it seems like as we go through one issue, another one comes up. Last year we dealt with the Brooklyn Day shooting. We dealt with, and then we dealt with incidents before then, and go all the way back to 2015, even back to the Freddie Gray incidents and all that. So every year it seems like it's been something that's kind of hampered Baltimore, and the one thing I will say about this city is that we have a lot of people that have so much resiliency. And I think that's probably the word that I could use the most, was being from Baltimore and being in Baltimore, living in Baltimore. You have to have a lot of resiliency to be able to endure some of the things that we endure in this city. Unlike other jurisdictions or other cities across the country, Baltimore is very unique in that. So those are some and it's very, very troubling that we go through these incidences and we see all of this stuff and then we try to get to a resolution. And how do we fix the problems? How do we fix, little things that in some cities, a pothole is a big thing in another city. And here in Baltimore, it's normal. We are number one in a lot of negative categories, but we have some of the best people on the planet. And I can't figure out how we get a happy medium between the two. All that we endure, but yet we have a lot of the best people on the planet. Some of the strongest, most resilient people on this planet live in Baltimore. So I just wanted to kind of kick off with that, acknowledging the incidents, the tragic incidents of today. We forget that, these are lives. I hear people talking about, well, how they're going to rebuild the bridge and what it's going to do for traffic and all of that. Not 24 hours into this, where we haven't even gotten an account of how many lives and how many families are impacted by this tragedy here in Baltimore. And it's a shame that we get national media coverage always when it's something negative in Baltimore. So I would love for, if when kids graduate from school, that becomes national news in Baltimore. It should be normal, but that becomes national news, that all the good things that are happening in this city. So that's what we're going to highlight. I'm going to begin to kind of shift the focus a little bit of the show to begin to highlight all of those things that are good. We know what all the negative things are. I said, but we know what all the negative things are, but let's begin to highlight some of the positive, a lot of the positive that goes on all over the city. So that's kind of where we want to start. Today we have a great lineup. We have 2 mayoral candidates, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican. We have Bob Wallace, who has kind of been an electric candidate over recent weeks. So we'll have a great conversation with Bob Wallace. We'll have a great conversation with Donoald Scoggins, who's also running for mayor of Baltimore City. And then we'll have, and then in between them, we'll have the vice president of the Baltimore City Council, Councilwoman Sharon Middleton. So we got a lot to talk about today. And I'm looking forward to all of and believe me, this is all interactive. If you have questions, you can ask your questions in the group chat on Baltimore City Voters. Do we have the number? We don't have the phone number up there. Okay. So ask your there it is. There it is. You can call in 410-220-1905. Look on your screen, 410-220-1905. Call in, get your questions asked, or send us a message on Baltimore City Voters. And I'd like to, again, thank my super producer, Desmond Stinney, for this opportunity, but also being the best producer in social media and in this realm. So we're going to get started. I think our first guest is on. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in the young man. I call him a young man. I think Bob got me by a couple of years. So but I'm going to bring in, it's not in yet. I'm going to bring in Bob Wallace, and he has been a business owner. He owns, he hails from Cherry Hill, his beloved Cherry Hill, and has created businesses for most of the time that I've known. I've probably known Bob for maybe at least 20 years. And I remember, him getting involved in a lot of energy businesses and things like that, and created jobs all over the city. So he'll be on shortly. Then we'll have Sharon Middleton, who will come in after that, who has ascended to the role of vice president of the city council, and has been council member for, I believe, at least 17 years. So she'll be joining us as well, and I think it'd be good to get a good update. Maybe she can update us on the situation with the bridge as well. Then we'll have Donoald Scoggins, who has been he and I think he's been somewhat maligned because of the opportunities. So I'll let him talk about some of his frustration, but also some of his strengths and why he wants to be mayor of Baltimore. So let me see where we are. And I want to make sure we get Mr. Wallace on. Is he in the room now? Okay, so we're gonna start in reverse order. Let's go with we're gonna bring on Donoald Scoggins. He's not in. He said he was in. Hold on. Okay. Well, we are going to go with our councilwoman. I'm sorry, y'all, I got it mixed up. It was my fault. So we're going to bring on Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton, Vice President of Baltimore City Council. Councilwoman Middleton, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All is well. All is well. We're excited to have you on today, even in the midst of a tragedy. And you know, I was telling our production team I wanted to bring you on first, either way, because I don't know what information you may have or any updates that you may have regarding the bridge incident.
Yeah, the last update I had was, or the council was given, was around 9:30 this morning. Uh, the mayor had a briefing with the total council. The mayor, the emergency management, were the main two people that really spoke and gave all of us updates, and we answered questions. And you know, it's still an active rescue scene at this particular time. So we're going to get another update in the morning.
Mhm.
And I just, you know, it's just a real tragedy. I got word of it, or something was sent to me like around 3ish in the morning, and I just couldn't believe it. I travel that bridge regularly because I have relatives that live in Turner Station
Mm.
and the Sparrows Point area, and just I at first I thought it was a joke, and then when I actually saw, you know, the footage that is constant, I just couldn't believe it. So and I think a lot of people are still kind of in shock. So you know, we still are sending prayers up to the families and all the people that are impacted by this tragedy. And you know, Baltimore has strong, faithful people, and that's what we have to. It again, it's another time where we all can band together, work together, and just try to keep things moving.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Councilwoman, well, thank you for coming on the show. And I know, you know, we've known each other for some years.
Yes, we have.
Some years, probably most of, if not all of your tenure on the council.
Yeah.
And you know, you know, I'm very biased at times because of all the support that you've given us in my beloved Park Heights, in our beloved Park Heights. And so I want to frame this conversation around. You know, I was just saying I don't want to focus on so much negativity because so many negative things happen in Baltimore. But I want to talk about some of the positive things that have happened now and over the years in your tenure as councilwoman. So if you want to start, I just want to kind of let our listeners know that may not know, you know, how long have you been on the council, when you first got into the council, and what do you feel are the challenges you faced over your tenure?
So yes, I like to reintroduce myself. As you said, it's been I can't believe it. I'm finishing up my fourth term. Mayor Scott is my fifth mayor, and I'm also serving my second term as vice president of the council. I did a small little stint for 3 months through that transition. If you remember when uh, Mayor Jack Young moved up to mayor, and I did the council president seat for a short time as well. But stayed focused in my task, which it has always been number one, and that's representing the 6th district,
Mhm.
and have always stayed with the theme that I use, putting people and communities first, because a council person's job is listening and working with communities to make sure government works for our neighborhoods. And we know that that doesn't, government can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. It's always about partnerships and building those strong relationships. And that's how I try to always do things quickly, just uh, reminding people of, my background. Started out in secondary public education, moved on to the State Department of Education as a specialist in, I was an advisor for 3 high school student organizations, and then moved on to the Department of Labor Licensing and Regulations. And in that department was the governor's Workforce Investment Board under Parish
Mm.
Glendenny. And that's where I learned how to do white papers and all kinds of things because I worked for the governor's Workforce Investment Board. Then did a stint in general services, and then became the state director of the apprenticeship system for the state of Maryland.
Mm.
And from there, I went on and became a council person. When Stephanie Rawlins Blake moved up to council president, I finished
Mm.
out her last term. And 9 people went up for that position. And I always remember it because it was a day that snowed on Valentine's Day. And we all of us had to interview in front of the total council. The process is a little different now.
Right.
Um, and in that, last year really learned a lot about City Hall and constituent service. And, that experience led me on to run for office. And just, I've always, as you listened, I've always had public service jobs. And this particular job, I continue as a public servant. Um, have been on several, just about every committee, and now I chair economic and community development, which is the most active and um, uh, strongest committee, I'll say.
I would have to agree.
A lot of things come through there. Rezoning. It keeps me abreast of all the development, not just in Park Heights, but in areas that are in my district that are growing, but keeps me abreast of things that are going on around the entire city. And for me, that knowing all that really helps my district. I've put in this term pieces of, and that's really how I base my um, the way I put in my legislation. I think one, a lot of people forget the first 2 years of this term was we were locked down in COVID.
Yeah.
So that's when things really, just communication has changed. So many different things have changed. But I stayed to the task. And one bill that I'm just so proud of because of what I saw in COVID, and that was the passing of that Security Deposit Relief Act.
Mm.
I noticed that there was a lot of transition during COVID, where especially renters and black women with single black women with children
Hmm.
were losing their jobs, having to leave out of their apartments and just really trying to find a place to live. And that's when this Security Deposit Relief Act was passed by the mayor. And basically, in short, someone has an opportunity to get if they're in a certain income looking for an apartment, they can apply for this money to get up to $2,000 to pay for their security deposit, which usually is like a month's rent ahead of
Right.
time. And that's still very active. That started really right when COVID kind of started ending, and really just proud of that bill. Um, I think I think one of the most recent things is with a bill is with, and I worked with a colleague, and we finally got the director of aging as a cabinet level position. So that's going to be enhanced more because that's like a new office of aging that's being set up. And through that, an added position will be added to every senior center. And we have the wonderful, most active still, our Zeta Center in
Indeed.
Park Heights. I have also been on the Commission of Aging since I've been a council member. So um, that that partnership right there, the Zetas and with the city, has really enhanced older adults and activities right at that center. So and when I first got on the council, that was like the first thing that opened was the Zeta Center, and
Yes,
it
it
is still going
is.
strong. And when I
Thriving.
right
Thriving.
right when I go to my commission meetings, everyone knows that I brag about the Zeta Center, and they come. In fact, we had our last meeting there. They do a lot of meetings because it's an active center, and they can get ideas and things from our older adults. I'm a strong supporter of the Women's Commission, keeping that going.
Did you see the? I don't know if you can see the question, Councilwoman, but that's actually the question that came up on Facebook for you.
Oh, okay.
Someone asked
Yes, the
questions.
Women's Commission
Yeah.
is still very much involved. In fact, they just had um, a work session with all the members. So, just advancing that organization,
Mhm.
still going very strong. Um, it's under the direction of the Office of Equity, and that director is Dana Moore, and she helped to, fill the positions for the Women's Commission. Just continue. When I started on the council, half the council was women and half was males, and now it's down to just four women. So still pushing that, we need that mix so
Mhm.
women's issues can also be answered. Um, I could go on with.
Absolutely. Well, I
You
want
want me to
to,
stop there?
Councilwoman. Well, no, I got a question for you. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure. So you've represented the 6th district, and for our listeners that don't know, what are the boundaries of the 6th district and the communities that people may be familiar with that that they may recognize?
Very diverse district. It's long. It's a long district, starting at Charles Street, uh, and then we have the borders of Northern Parkway to Cold Spring. So you want to start there. I have Central Roland Park. I have all of basically, I'd say most of the private schools, and you head down to the Village across Keys, which is also finally getting some good active renovation with the
Mhm.
businesses and um, another condo high rise is coming there. So that um, Village across Keys is really taking off. I have uh, Poly Western High School, and you keep coming down to Cold Spring, the Woodlands at Cold Spring, the Silburn Arboretum, the Cold Spring Newtown, at the area in which I reside. Keep going to Lifebridge Sinai Hospital is really my main biggest employer in my district. Very active in the Park Heights community. We have uh, a new renovated, one of the first renovated 21st century schools in the city is Pimlico
Yeah.
Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And stopping there for a minute, as soon as that school was finished, I partnered again and sponsored with Aetna Health, and they did a citywide health. Um, Basically, the school was for a whole weekend uh, trying to help individuals, particularly I made a point to have it there right in that Park Heights community, but everyone in the entire city could come, and 1,000 people were serviced for health needs like getting glasses, just being tested for different things like diabetes and so on. You could walk in and doctors could see you for just about anything for free, totally free. And that was a whole weekend for 3 days. Um, then also started a program that made a partnership. It's a health program for eighth graders, the first of its kind in the city, and LifeBridge is the partners with the school center, and that's been going on now. I think they're starting either their fourth year, and it's been so successful. They're going to expand that, and they're also going to partner or have already started with the 21st century renovated Forest Park High School, which they're creating their pipeline of health employees. So if you grab that interest early and keep it moving, Sinai can, because there's a shortage in all those fields.
Absolutely.
But keep going down, and I have still, you keep going down to Sinai, and then we get on Belvedere. So Belvedere is a dividing line all the way to Park Circle. Keep it moving through Forest Park, several neighborhoods right within Forest Park,
Mm-hmm.
right on Garrison Boulevard, through West Arlington, um, down through Wabash, all the way to Windsor Hills, Garwin Oaks. I could name several
Wow.
communities. It's
So
a very,
it's a very vast district.
yes,
And
it
a very
is. Yes,
diverse
it is.
district. And so what do you see as um what would you say is your crowning achievement that you've seen over the years in your tenure? What was your shining moment that said, I'm glad that we did that?
So every term there has been, people want to see stuff,
Mhm.
see development, but there has been development every term throughout the district, not just within Park Heights. I've had first thing pop in my mind is that Dorothy J apartment building that was before that building was there for many years. That was an eyesore,
Yes.
just a mess. So that apartment building is still thriving at that end. There has been so many programs, and I don't want to leave out the advancement that I helped to push with the former George Mitchell, and that's at Langston Hughes, which
Yeah.
is now, when Langston Hughes closed as an elementary school, that pushed to make it a community resource and business center is still thriving. In fact, We Are Us, which also has been a strong supporter and started in my district and still going strong. And they have stretched throughout really the entire city
Yeah.
doing street work. And you have to build those partnerships to help people meet people where they are. And of course, I can't do it alone. I'm I see myself as, we're the bridge maker, and that's what I feel I've continued to do. We Park Heights was the first place to remember the problem with the liquor stores, and you were involved in that,
Absolutely.
where we had to get those hours changed. But
Yes.
it took time and it took a process. And today, some of those liquor stores have, they're out of business.
Well, I remember we had, and just to your point, Councilwoman, I know we're going to wrap up this segment, but
Mhm.
we started that process, and we had 88 liquor licenses in Park Heights at the time, and I believe with you and us and Park Heights Renaissance, the new Park Heights CDC, we all worked together, and now today Park Heights has 32nd liquor licenses. So we got rid of about 50 liquor licenses in Park Heights as a result of the community coming together and working together. But Councilwoman, I want to thank you for coming on, and I definitely know we're going to have you back on. We appreciate your time and what you've done for, and I'll say my community. And so we greatly appreciate it. And so we thank you for being on, and I look to have you back soon.
Thank you. Yeah, we and I can't. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the two libraries that are being worked on from each end. Finally, getting a Park Heights library, and then the massive renovation that's going to be taking place of the Forest Park Library. That's never two libraries in one district has never happened, and I'm just we know that libraries have changed, and they're like you know they're a main pressure point in rebuilding communities. So I'm still full of energy and to keep things moving. And yes, thank you, Will, for having me on just to share some of the positive things. I could take up your whole show on
Yes,
stuff,
ma'am.
but thank you again for having me on.
Thank you, and that is Council Vice President, the Vice President of the Baltimore City Council, Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton. Thank you, Councilwoman.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're gonna move right into our next guest on the show. We'll go into our next guest is Wallace. Is Bob in? We're trying to let Bob Wallace know we're trying to get him on. Let's go to he's in. Okay. So we're gonna bring in Bob Wallace. And we did a kind of a soft intro with him. So now we're gonna actually hear from the man himself. Good evening, Mr. Wallace. Are you there? Did we get him? Is he still there? Okay, we'll wait on the call back. In the meantime, we'll let Bob close us out, and we'll save him for the end of the show. And I think that's going to be probably an entertaining portion having him in, because we got a special thing we want to do with that. But in the meantime, let's get mayoral candidate Donoald Scoggins on. I believe he's in our waiting room. So let's get Donoald Scoggins in. Mr. Scoggins, good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, indeed. We can hear you just fine.
Yes.
Now,
Thanks very much for inviting me on this show.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I wanted to give you an opportunity, take a minute or two to kind of introduce yourself and to our listeners, and why you're running for mayor of Baltimore City.
Well, I don't want to take up too much time talking about me, but I do have a very diverse professional career in housing and urban planning, architecture, many years in government, also as a small business owner in real estate development. And I've worked over the years with several nonprofit housing corporations, getting them started. And to answer your question about why I want to run for mayor of Baltimore, I guess you're not the only one that wants to know that question, wants to know that answer. I'll tell you what, the reason why I'm running for mayor of Baltimore, because I'm really concerned for the kids, to tell you the truth. And Baltimore is a beautiful city. I don't want to talk about any of the problems, because you started off saying that you wanted to hear the positive things. And I think that that's another reason why Baltimore has tremendous potential. And I think over the years, not to be negative, but over the years, I think the potential has been somewhat squandered. And when I talk to people, they said that maybe somebody who's fresh and not entrenched would be a good person to have, because some of the current, I would say, people involved in the Baltimore public arena, so to speak, they've been around a while, and maybe they've gotten a little stale, and maybe they have sort of gotten too comfortable on certain things, and they're maybe Baltimore needs a change. I would just say that. And so that's the biggest reason why I want to run. And also, like I said, I got involved with trying to do some things when it came to some of the vacant and boarded up housing. And as I poked around the city to see what could be done and how you do that, it was they administratively, that kind of needed, how should I put it? That was kind of wanting, so to speak. But like I said, I don't want to be negative. I want people to know that I'm not a negative person. But usually when you run for office, you like to think that you can make some improvements. So if there's improvements you can make, people may say, well, what are the improvements, or what has to be improved? So I do not want to be a naysayer, like I said.
Well,
but one thing I will say too, before I get into it, one of the you said something about the frustrations. The biggest frustration I have is that there's some wonderful people who are making the same journey that I'm making to become the next mayor of Baltimore, but have not been able to get sufficient media coverage. And I know you have to, when you run in a campaign, you have to pay for publicity and all, but there are certain people, especially the incumbent, and also someone who's been in office before, they get inundated. They get quite a bit of coverage. And also, what frustrates me is the fact that there are people who appear to be trying to steer the election in a certain way by neglecting, or by avoiding, or ignoring other folks that are in the contest here.
Well, let's talk about what the plan may be, what your plans may be going forward. What do you see as your vision for Baltimore?
Okay.
Under administration.
Yeah. Excuse me, what did you say in that? What was the last part?
I said under Scoggins administration. What would be your vision for Baltimore?
Okay, what I would like to do, and like I said, I think Baltimore has tremendous potential, especially when it comes to the real estate. And I would like to see Baltimore become, and since it is a majority minority or majority Black city, I would like to see it become the wealthiest majority minority city in the country. And it has the potential to do that. I would like to concentrate very much on economic development instead of having, social programs are fine, but what I would like to do is assist people to get to the point where they do not need social programs. I would like to bring more private businesses into the city. And I think that some of the current assets that the city does have, that can be retrofitted in such a way that we can finance some of these projects, these proposals that I'm talking about. And I will say this, Baltimore has been in a certain state for not years, but decades. So I do not intend to be a savior, so to speak. I do not intend to be a savior. But what I would like to do, and I'm going to be very honest about this, I would like to make it so that the residents of Baltimore are not continually abused. I believe that having such a high tax rate, property tax rate, and the return on services is not commensurate with what the people have to pay here in property taxes. I plan on right-sizing government as best as we can. And also what I would like to do is bring a sense of ethics to the city. When I talk to people, and that's the only way you can find out and learn things, when I go around and move and talk to various folks and various people, many of them do not have faith in the government. They figure that the government is not for them, or maybe there's some ethical behavior going on. And I think that the best way to turn Baltimore around, in addition to improving the education and improving the lowering the poverty rate, is to bring a sense of ethics into the city, so that so there's not a great field of people who are not doing what they should do. So that's what I would like to do. I would like to change the tone, so to speak, because to me, there's been a lot of drama in Baltimore about so I would like to kind of, maybe this may sound kind of not so good, but I like a government that's boring. You see what it does, and not, in other words, you're seen and not heard, so to speak. But I would like to be that type of person.
Now, one of the things that we talk about when we talk about Baltimore is the declining population.
Right.
What strategies would you have to increase the Baltimore at one point was built for almost 1 million people, and now we have probably half of that. What do you think would be the driver of bringing residents back to Baltimore?
Okay, I think the first thing that has to be done is try to change the image of Baltimore. I mean, when you mention Baltimore, we're just being honest and we're just being adults here. But when you mention Baltimore, wherever you go in the country, maybe it's because of the Wire, that program that they had on. But most people, when you talk about Baltimore, they sort of say, well, why do you want to move to Baltimore? Why do you want to do that? This has a bad image. But when you come to Baltimore and you see the excellent infrastructure that it has here, I'm just amazed by the transportation network coming in off of 295. Unfortunately, it had the situation with the Francis Scott Bridge, but 695, 83, you got so many nice arterial ways to get in and out of the city and to get around inside the city. So I think that should be, we should take advantage of that. And needless to say about the vacant and boarded up houses, what I would do is make it so that we need to systematically, or what I would call surgically, redevelop certain areas of Baltimore. It can't be done in a scatterbrained way whereby, there are vacant houses that are strewn throughout Baltimore. That is very sprawling, is blight. But I think you have to sort of take it in a systematic way and do it neighborhood by neighborhood, or maybe a few neighborhoods at a time. But it has to be done in a organized way, and you can't do it in scatterbrained ways. So that's one thing, and you have to let the country and let the citizens know that this is what's going to be done, and I plan to do it. I'm not going to be derailed by politics. The decision I want to make will be what's best for the people, and not what's best for the politician. That's what I want to do.
Absolutely. Mr. Scoggins, I want to give you about 30 seconds if to close out this segment. I'll give you 30 seconds. And I'll let you go from there and talk to the people of Baltimore.
Well, are there anybody have any questions? They probably don't, I guess. Okay.
All right.
Well, excuse me. Any questions for anyone? I guess it's not. Are they people calling in? I guess I don't know if they're doing it on how they're doing it. But I would say this to close out. I would also say that I'm running as a moderate Republican. When you mention the word Republican, people get sort of heartburn about all that. But I'm running on what I want to do and not what a party wants to do. I'm not entrenched in Baltimore. I'm not entrenched. I'm not a part of any particular ideology. If it was up to me, quite frankly, I would run as an independent. But Independent it's a higher bar to get on the ballot as an independent. So that's what I would do. And I really, in closing, like I said earlier, I'm doing this for the youth. I would like to create a youth academy or a leadership academy whereby we can train young people to be leaders in Baltimore, so that those that come up through the ranks will know what government is all about, and not it's about public service and not about serving themselves. So that's what I would like to do. And it's going to be a long-term effort. It's going to, what I want to do will have to be continued on by other people too, because this is going to be a 30 or 40-year effort, I'm sure. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Scoggins. We look forward to having you back on sometime, maybe before the primary. Maybe we can have you back on and we can go in a little more in depth and talk about some of your plans for the city.
I know you have other people to come on. I know you have another guest, right?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, sir. Okay, so just for the sake of time, I want to thank Donald Scoggins for coming on, and now we're going to wrap up the show. We're going to end the show with Bob Wallace. Bob Wallace, good evening.
Well,
good evening, sir. You know I wanted to get you on first, so they say those who shall be first shall be last.
Amen. Amen, brother. That's right.
Glad to have you on. Glad to have you join us. We're this has been I would say a long time coming, because I remember last time I wanted to get you on the show and I couldn't get you on. So now we got you. But there's something that we want to do. There's something we want to play before we get into your interview. We want to play. I think our producers has it queued up. So we're going to play this clip really quick. And
Also, the only one up here who has started businesses from scratch, created jobs, careers, and wealth. I'm the only one. Yes, sir. And so the idea of building an organization, of building an enterprise, I'm the only one of people who has experience doing that. And so the idea is this. What we know is a C player will hire other C players. To hire A players, you've got to be an A player. What we have is C players hiring other C players till we end up with a C city. This is not complicated for us. So we know there are smart people out there that can help us fix the problems of the city. What we do as engineers is fix problems. I am asking the people of this city to stop going down this old path and find a new way and hire somebody that can solve problems.
so we had to do it. We had to do it. So that was I would say this. In probably in a long time in Baltimore politics, had we not had someone that set the city on fire like that. I mean, the place, I was there in the room, to be in the room, it was an electric atmosphere. It was fearless. It was priceless, so I want to give you an opportunity first to open, talk to the residents of Baltimore, talk to Baltimore City voters and tell them why Bob Wallace should be the next mayor of Baltimore City.
Absolutely, Will. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. And that was an interesting forum. I thought Dr. K did a great job. So Will, look, as you know, man, I'm from Baltimore. I heard your previous speaker. Look, I'm from Baltimore, born and raised in Cherry Hill, as you know, one of 5 boys. Went to Cherry Hill Elementary, Cherry Hill Middle School, Polytech High School from there, and then on to college and then grad school and the whole corporate thing, Will, before becoming an entrepreneur. And, I love this city and I've been here for a long, long time. My family's been generations here. Mm-hmm. And so what I've looked at though, Will, is I have up until now, if I can speak frankly to the people,
absolutely.
Okay. Up until now, I had been one of those guys in the back, the proverbial smoke-filled back room, Will, writing checks to politicians who I thought could take us in the right direction, particularly in the city of Baltimore. And I won't go on any names, but I can tell you administration after administration, I have written checks, right? And Will, I've been disappointed. I've been disappointed. I mean, I have not met anyone on this campaign trail who has said to me, Baltimore, I believe the city's going in the right direction. You know, Will, you talked about it in the previous set. You talked about the population going down almost to half of what it was. I didn't hear this part, but I'm sure you know this. Our children are not learning in the schools, right? The poverty rate hasn't changed. And my opponents, you know, I have these graphs that we drew, Will, to look at different metrics under my opponents' administrations, whether it was poverty rate, whether it was food deserts, whether it was the underemployed, whether it was vacant properties, whatever it is, we're going in the wrong direction. And so the question that everyone has to ask themselves, or they should be asking themselves, Will, is why? Why are we, who was such a great city in many ways, even Will, even in the midst of racism and segregation in the 60s and 70s in the city, African Americans were working and prospering and contributing into this city, even in the midst of segregation and racism, right? The era that I came up through. But yet something went wrong. Something's gone wrong. And so we as a city have to ask ourselves, what happened? Why? Well, there are many possibilities, and I know, Will, it's complex, and I'm not trying to make it simple. But one of the things that comes to the top of the list on everyone's list is leadership, or lack thereof. It's leadership. And so when I looked at that, Will, I said, my goodness, I said, what are we going to do? How does the leadership model change? And it hasn't changed. I mean, my opponents, I love them to death. They're good people, Will. I don't dislike them at all. They're decent people. They just don't get it. They don't get it. And so I'm saying my analysis of Baltimore City, and then we've done this analysis, Will. We looked at every single problem, whether it's poverty, whether it's food deserts, whether it's low performance educational performance, whatever it is, the root cause is a lack of economic opportunity. It's a lack of economic opportunity, particularly for people of color, for African Americans. 2/3 of our people in our city, Will, for example, struggle every day to make ends meet. 2/3. We have about 25% of our people who live below the poverty level. We have 25% who live in what's called food deserts. They can't get fresh food. And 30% of our people don't have cars to get back and forth to work. So they need to depend upon the public transportation system. How can we be a great city when 2/3 of our people struggle economically? And so, Will, my platform is real simple, right? Economic is economic development. I'm talking about bringing at least $1 billion of new investment, not into the inner harbor, not into building shiny new buildings around the water. I'm talking about at least $1 billion of investment into neighborhoods, right? Into my neighborhood, Cherry Hill, into East Baltimore, West Baltimore, Mount Wallace, Westport, places that have been ignored for decades. And so we're going to create, from that $1 billion, we're going to create at least 50,000 jobs for people in the city. Because I know that if we can give our people jobs, if we can get our people jobs, that will impact everything else. If we can keep our kids in the education system, Will, that they start in pre-K and kindergarten and go through 12th grade and graduate with skills that will allow them to move into the economy, whether either, Will, as a college track or as a trade track, carpentry, electricity, heating, ventilation, artificial intelligence technicians, solar technicians, which is what we train in my energy company, right? All these things that can move in that direction. Or, Will, my plan is to have a track for entrepreneurs, for creating the next generation of entrepreneurs. As I think Will, I've written 6 books on this stuff. I've been doing this for decades, as far as teaching cities and our young people and universities how to create the next generation of entrepreneurs. I think, Will, that we can build that into our education system in Baltimore City, but we got to do some things differently, right? We got to have a different strategy, and I have a strategy on education. But between the economy, Will, and education, those are going to be, I'm going to hone like a laser beam, because I know if we get those two things right, if we get them right, we transform this city. We transform this city. And so I'm a leader, Will. I'm a kind of leader. I don't need a job, right? So
Right.
I'm not trying to be governor. I'm not trying to, Will, God's been good to me, brother. You know what I mean? I built my business. I love my wife for 46 years. We have 5 grown, successful kids. We got 11 grandkids. 3 of my grandkids are in college. God's been good to me, man. So the Bible tells us, to whom much is given, much is required.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just doing what God told me to do. He said, okay, Robert, I bless you. Okay, and then you gotta be a blessing to many others. And so I'm just trying to be a blessing, Will. I have no hidden agenda. If people think, why you want to do this? Why would you, somebody, who's been successful in business, why would you want this job, which is a difficult job? Because that's what men of God do. Men of God take difficult situations on the earth, and with God's help, they help make it better. That's what men of God do. And I'm a man of God. And so that's what God requires of me. And so I will do it if the people will have me.
Yes, sir. So I know we're getting close. We're coming up on a hard stop at 8 o'clock, but I want to give you an opportunity in probably the next 30 to 60 seconds, and tell voters why, other than what you've laid out, exactly why they should vote for Bob Wallace for mayor of Baltimore City.
Absolutely. Because it depends on what their vision of the city is. If their vision of the city is a city that where we can rebuild the economy so that it benefits all the people, not just some of the people. If we can build an economy that's based upon the new technologies and the new areas of light manufacturing, if we believe that we can create a city where we can be healthy and have safety, then I'm the guy to do that. You've given the other 2 people chances to do it, and you saw what you got with them. I'm asking the voters, give Bob Wallace a chance. You gave them 1 term, give me 1 term, and see what I can do for the city of Baltimore with your help and God's help.
Yes, sir. Well, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show. We'd love to have you back. I know we had some technical difficulties earlier, so we definitely want to bring you back on, because I want to make sure we make up that time as well. But looking forward to seeing you on the campaign trail, and good luck to you going forward.
Thank you very well. God bless you, man. Keep doing good things.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All righty.
Well, before we close, so Bob Wallace always brings the energy, always going to bring the fire. So I want to thank our guests that came on today. Donald Scoggins, Baltimore City Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton, and Bob Wallace. I'll be remiss, and I probably would get hazed if I got off this show and didn't commemorate a dedication to this Women's History Month. So I want to thank some very profound women in our community, including my mom. But I want to congratulate and thank Miss Linda Batts. I want to thank Miss Mary Hughes. I want to thank Miss Tori Rose. I want to thank Kiana Jones. I want to thank a bunch of people. I want to thank Jerika Robinson. I want to thank Senator Barbara Robinson, all the women that are involved. I want to thank Desmond Stinney's wife. I want to thank all of them. And I'll be remiss if I didn't thank Mrs. Tashia Irving Hannah. So thank you, and we'll be here next week with another edition of the Special Delivery with Will Hannah. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Spit it out. Special delivery.
I want that.
Special delivery.
I need that.
Special delivery.
Can I have that?
Special delivery. Special delivery.
I want that.
Special delivery.
I need that.
Special delivery.
Can I have that?